Ready to dive into something a little unexpected today.
Ooh, let's hear it.
We're talking tarot on Reddit.
Okay. More than meets the eye, right?
Right.
Right.
We found Vertero and get this over 1 million members.
Wow.
1 million people swapping stories, interpretations, advice. It really shows you the power of online communities. You can find anything.
It is amazing. And, it's fascinating how this particular community bridges, well, the ancient and the modern. I mean, you've got centuries-old symbolism being discussed and debated on this platform that, let's be honest, didn't even exist a couple of decades ago.
It's so true. It's like this digital crossroads for something that, to be honest, a lot of people still see as kind of mysterious.
Hmm.
But looking at these threads, it's not all like predicting the future or freaking out about the tower card. What really stood out to me was how much of it is actually about, well, seeking clarity in everyday life.
Totally. People are using tarot as a framework,
Right.
like a way to navigate all the crazy ups and downs of modern life, relationship stuff, career stuff, even just trying to understand themselves a little better.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. What were some of the specific questions or discussions that caught your eye?
Well, one that I thought was really interesting was this newcomer. They were asking if $85 was too much for a professional tarot reading. Seemed a little hesitant, like they were trying to justify it.
85 bucks for a deck of
Oh,
cards. That's a chunk of change.
right. But it's a really good question because it makes you think about how we put a price on something like intuition or guidance, right? There's no set cost. It can really vary depending on the reader's experience, what kind of spread they're doing, the time involved. It's not just about the physical cards themselves.
So it's more about the, I don't know, the expertise, the perceived value of the insight they're giving, kind of like therapy or coaching.
Exactly. And this actually connects to a bigger conversation that's happening in the community. How do you explain what tarot is really about to skeptics? Because, well, let's face it, I think most of us have run into a few of those.
Oh, for sure. Not exactly a great conversation starter at a dinner party. Oh, you know that new job I'm considering? Well, I consulted the cards. People might start looking at you a little funny.
Haha, exactly. But what I thought was interesting was this emphasis on finding the right language. Like, how do you talk about it in a way that resonates with people, even if they've never touched a tarot deck? Like, instead of focusing on the fortune-telling aspect, emphasizing tarot as a tool for introspection, decision-making, something practical.
So it's about reframing it. It's not about some external force dictating your future. It's about tapping into your own inner wisdom.
Exactly. And that shift, I think, is really key to understanding how people are actually using tarot. It's not about giving up control. It's about empowering yourself, taking ownership of your life, your choices.
Okay, so let's get into some more specific examples. Because one thread, honestly, really threw me for a loop. Someone was talking about using the Tower card. The one that's usually all about chaos and upheaval. They were talking about using it for positive change. How does that even work?
Well, and this is a perfect example of how this community isn't just accepting the traditional interpretations, right? They're questioning things, flipping them on their head, and finding these really interesting new meanings.
So like saying, okay, the tower might represent destruction, but what do we look at that destruction as an opportunity, a clean slate, a chance to rebuild something even stronger, something better?
Exactly. It's about taking back the narrative, recognizing that even the things that seem negative, they can also be catalysts for growth, for real transformation. And that kind of active engagement, that's what we see throughout these discussions.
It's like taking something old and making it new again, remixing it for a whole new generation.
Totally. And it's not just the interpretations, it's how people are using tarot too. Creativity, problem solving. I even saw one about using it for fun.
Oh yeah, that one's great. A student wanting to make a tarot-themed game for their study group.
Right. It just shows you how versatile tarot is. It's not just about, telling the future. It can be inspirational, a way to tell stories, a tool for exploring archetypes and symbols.
I bet it would spark some pretty interesting conversations.
Yeah.
But then, some of the threads took a bit of a darker turn. Someone was really worried about someone doing witchcraft on them. Now, that's where I think I'd be reaching for some sage or something.
Well, it's understandable. Tarot does have that historical association with the occult. But, it's important to be critical, too. There's genuine exploration, and then there's, well, sensationalized fear. It's about separating those.
Right, like anything else online, there's good information and not so good information. And it's easy to get caught up in it.
Exactly. And that's what makes spaces like this so important. Open discussion, critical thinking, all that.
Makes you realize, too, there are real people behind these usernames, all dealing with the same kind of questions and uncertainties.
Absolutely. I even saw this thread where someone lost their Empress card and was freaking out about whether they could still use the deck.
Oh, wow. Does that matter? Do you need all 78 cards for it to, work?
It's a common question, and it shows you how attached people get to their decks. But honestly, there's no right or wrong answer. Some people see it as a sign to get a new deck, others just adapt.
So again, it comes down to personal preference. Intuition.
Exactly. We even saw this with the types of decks people were looking for. One person wanted a deck with saints, of all things.
Saints. That's a new one. I'm so used to seeing the traditional Rider-Waite images.
Oh, there are decks for everything these days. Animals, mythology, even pop culture. It's all about finding what resonates with you, what speaks to your own personal style and interests.
Kind of choosing a journal, right? You want it to feel right.
Exactly. Making it your own, finding those tools that really help you tap into your intuition on a deeper level.
Looking back at all these threads, seems like a lot of them come down to this desire for, I don't know, clarity, guidance. Like it's
Yeah.
not so much about fortune telling as it is about figuring out how to deal with all the uncertainty of life.
That's a great point. It's like they're turning to tarot for help with understanding themselves, exploring their options, making sense of everything. It's a tool for self-reflection and for empowerment.
It's like when you're at a crossroads, right?
Yeah.
And you just want a little nudge,
Yeah.
a new perspective, anything.
And that's where, tarot can be surprisingly helpful. It's not about, getting all the answers laid out in front of you. It's more about asking the right questions.
There's this one thread actually about all the different ways people pull cards. Like some people shuffle until one feels right. Others wait for a card to jump out of the deck. I mean, it's kind of wild when you think about it.
But it speaks to that intuitive connection that we're talking about, right? It's not about following some rule book. It's about finding what works for you, what helps you connect with, well, your own inner voice.
So it's not really about the cards at all. It's about what we bring to them, the intention, the personal meaning. It's almost, I don't know, meditative in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think makes this whole exploration of tarot on Reddit so interesting. It's not about, blindly following tradition. It's about making it your own, taking this ancient practice and adapting it to the modern world and all the questions that come with it.
It's kind of like the internet, for all its faults, is giving people this way to reconnect with something ancient, to find meaning in these symbols that have been around for centuries.
And to connect with each other, too. It's easy to forget, there are real people behind those usernames all dealing with the same stuff, looking for answers.
Like a global support group with a little dash of, mysticism thrown in. And on that note, as we wrap up our deep dive into this corner of the internet, I have one last question for you. Hey, for everyone listening, actually.
Okay, I'm listening.
If you could ask the tarot one question, just one, regardless of what you believe, what would it be? What would you ask those cards to understand yourself a little better? Your path, maybe even the universe if you're feeling ambitious? It's something to think about, right?
Definitely gives you a lot to ponder.
And with that, we'll leave you to contemplate your own tarot questions. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.